I try not to get too caught up in, Gen Z versus Y versus millennials versus anything else versus boomers. I think at the end of the day, like utility wins out. I think when things are easy and they serve a purpose, there's a clear value proposition that should be ageless.
This is Velocitize Talks. I'm Eric Jones. I'm here with John Sampogna, the CEO and co-founder of Wondersauce. John, good to have you.
Happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about Wondersauce and what makes you distinct in the agency landscape.
Yeah, so Wondersauce, we're based in New York City. We're about 130 people across 5 offices, New York, LA, Columbus, Ohio, London, and Costa Rica. We specialize in 3 major buckets of work that we think comprises the modern customer journey for digitally led brands. So for us, it's one part, it's infrastructure. So when I say infrastructure, it's a super cohesive brand identity, both visually and from a tone and voice standpoint. And then the underlying kind of technology that it takes to be competitive as a brand today. Everything from mobile applications, websites, e-commerce experiences, all tied into content management systems, data analytics, and customer relationship management systems. We kind of complement that with content and campaign development. Everything from e-commerce photography, lifestyle shoots. We have a kind of 5,000 square foot facility within our New York studio. And we could also dial that up to larger campaigns. And then the third part would be paid media, mainly digital customer acquisition. So we think that those 3 tiers are really crucial to being successful today as a brand.
So you guys started a number of years ago. You mentioned a whole bunch of different services. How have you seen the services evolve from where you started to where they are today, and then even where you see them going in the future?
Honestly, our growth as an agency in terms of our service offering has been really organic, and we always let kind of like the demand for how clients view our services and view their customers, let that dictate kind of how we evolve. So in terms of our infrastructure activation and media offering, we don't really see that changing anytime soon. We're not looking to bolt anything else on. We're just going kind of deeper and deeper there. And for us, we have found that if we're, say, like building out a website and the goal is to increase conversion rate for e-commerce, it used to be where you had a really solid digital strategy. You had great user experience and design folks that were on staff to help with the actual look and feel and the core user flows. And you had great developers who can go ahead and build it. While that's still really, really crucial to leading to successful conversion, a lot of times conversion starts way back where there's on an Instagram ad, Google search terms. So the context in which a sale or a value proposition is teed up for a customer happens way before the actual product detail page or the home page. So we were having these conversations where we were constantly reliant on media agencies and their plans, and we were finding that a lot of times the context in which traffic was being sent to convert was off. So it was not so great traffic leading to not so great conversion, and there's only so much you can do from a user experience and design standpoint. So whether or not we're actually making the buys ourselves, we're able then to at least dissect the traffic, dissect the reports to inform where there could be fall off. So I think that's an important note. Just because you're full service doesn't mean you actually have to do everything for a brand. I think that's a really ambitious ask. But having the experts, just like in the 60s and 70s, the innovation of like pairing art and copy, we think pairing like media, tech, and creative is where things are really going.
How do you balance the pay that happens on other people's platforms as you counsel, clients about optimizing their funnels? How do you draw the distinction between what happens on other people's platforms and then actually bringing traffic back to people's own sites?
I think it all comes down to really aligning with all of your agency partners and the brand on what the goals are. Goals could really vary from awareness to conversion to even driving physical traffic or campaign signups, whatever. And I think that where we're at now, there are specific ad products, there are specific kind of creative briefs that would tee up a really great creative team to ultimately achieve any one of those things. And I think it's our job to partner with whether they're partner agencies or just directly with the brand, on really having them align on one core goal. A lot of times you'll hear, well, it's conversion, we need sales, but we also want to grow our Instagram to 2 million people. So while yes, there's going to be a little bit of both of that, aligning on one core goal, I think is super critical, and letting them know that we're in a super competitive market. We're competing with brands and startups, direct-to-consumer companies, friends, family, celebrities, athletes. So having a really distinct and clear value proposition for what you're trying to say to your audience, and then ultimately how that ties back to your goal, I think is the most important thing. Whether you're one of a group of agencies working towards a successful launch or a successful campaign, or you're just working directly with a small brand.
You once said that user experience is the new brand building. Tell us what you meant by that statement.
Yeah, I think many people have said a version of that line. And I think what it really means is that it isn't as important what a brand is saying any longer. The slogan or the tagline or the words the brand chooses to use. Again, the world is so noisy right now that I think that it really comes down to how a customer feels when they interact with your brand, not necessarily what you're saying. So I always use the example of car sharing services that when they first came out, whatever that was, 7, 8 years ago, that first time that we all had that shared memory of like being kind of skeptical of what was going on, and you like hit a button and ran through the rain, jumped in the backseat, sped off, got to your end destination, didn't pay, and you were just like, that was awesome. I'll probably do that again. It wasn't the campaign, it wasn't the slick interface, it wasn't the hopefully lack of conversation with the driver. It was
just good old-fashioned functionality.
Functionality, awesome customer experience. And I think that entire user journey, that user experience was the brand and its branding. And you see that now in a lot of other types of businesses where it's just little things that lead to kind of surprise and delight. And it could be mundane too. Like, I think that something like depositing a check on a banking app or extending a reservation for a hotel when you're on the road and you really want to get home to your family and you have to stay and it's just really easy and you don't have to talk to the front desk. That is little moments of brand building there. It didn't have to be meaningful. There wasn't a crazy narrative or story. It just made things easy in a moment where I didn't want to be blown away by a brand. And I think that wins more often than not. And I feel like sometimes it's like we're always talking about having meaningful brand experiences, and I would argue that 90% of meaningful brand experiences are the wrong meaning. It's usually negative. So like sometimes it's okay to be forgettable.
Mm-hmm. You do a lot of content creation for clients. We're all deluged with all sorts of content every day. How do you counsel clients on the content that they need to create to stand out?
I think right now, flexibility is everything. Being able to get the most out of a 1, 2, or 3 day shoot. We have a large portion of our office where we're able to close it off and basically take care of what we hope to be 1, 2, 3 months worth of content at a given shoot. And really, we want to understand what it is we're trying to get out of the shoot, where the content is going to live, and how flexible can we make the content so you can edit it, manipulate it, and ultimately use it for an ever-growing list of both your own properties and third-party properties that when you're working with third parties, like whether they're retailers or whatever, you're kind of tied to their format. So we think that like flexibility goes a long way, and we really like to offer up our clients copy and art that we can further optimize, whether that's during a campaign or a spend with social platforms. And we really want to like have them get the most out of a 1 or 2 day shoot. And then when we have something more robust, something that maybe a video, it may be a spot, it may be something that is a bit more anthemic, we put a lot more emphasis on not only making it look and feel great, but ultimately how can it be cut down and again reused in any number of formats that we aren't thinking of today.
Personalization is, it's definitely the holy grail, right,
Yep.
of a lot of companies, and particularly companies that are building out great digital experiences. Can you share some examples of companies that you think are doing personalization really, really well?
I think there's like faux personalization where you're going through a quiz or some onboarding experience, and you're then fed one of a handful of products or a dozen products, and it's customized or personalized to you in the sense that whatever that product is better suited than the product next to it. And then there's true personalization, which is something that I think is like custom. For me, it's the idea of personalization needs to be, again, like authentic to what it is you're trying to sell, and it has to be scalable. If I'm being told that a brand is going to create something personalized for me, the context in which has to be really correct, or I'm going to judge it falsely. And that's why I think there's a difference between like kind of like faux and true personalization. There was a weather service that I used to use that you'd go through this really clever onboarding experience. You would talk about the time you wake up, how you get to work, whether you walk, take the subway, take a cab, and they would serve up personalized text messages that had a really cool kind of unique tone of voice, and also just recommendations on what to wear and ultimately what could be happening in and around you that day. And it just felt like a really cool value exchange. Like, I'm going to give you a bunch of information about how I commute and go about my day, and in return, you're going to send me a text that simply kind of sets me on my way and tells me to put a jacket on.
Yeah, I think you hit on a really, really important point about the value exchange, right? If you're going to ask somebody, a consumer, for their data, you better do something
Absolutely.
compelling with that data. Otherwise, don't bother asking for it.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. One of the questions we love asking is a book, blog, or podcast that you'd like to recommend to our viewers.
I'm probably the wrong person to ask this question. I go through periods of kind of reading, lots of, trade publications and books on business and whatnot, and I get myself into a rut where it actually ends up stressing me out. And I also feel that we all read and consume the same stuff, and it leads to like recycled thinking. So I'm actually reading the classics right now. I'm on a kick. So I'm reading a ton of F. Scott Fitzgerald and Hemingway. It's amazing how reading stuff like that, which is, I'm sure everyone has read, kind of opens up your mind and your thinking, and it does actually lead to kind of a clear head in a meeting with a client, or as you're working through ideas for a presentation.
Yeah, they're classics for a reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, John.
Sure.
That was John Sampogna, the CEO and co-founder of Wondersauce.